invited Dr. Wamkele, His Excellency from the AfCFTA, the Secretary General, and he has dutifully gotten a representation from Mohamed Ali, who is the Director of Trade in Goods and Compliance at the AfCFTA Secretariat. So some of you may know this wonderful man, Mohamed Ali, who serves as the Director for Trade and Competition, at the AfCFTA Secretariat. He was appointed to be the first director in February 2001. Some of you who know him also know that he was born and brought up or raised in Egypt and graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting and Business Management from Cairo University in Egypt. He obtained a master's degree in Development and Public Policy from the KDI School of Public Policy and Management in South Korea. He served as the Director of African Relations at the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Egypt's Chief Negotiator in the agreement establishing the AfCFTA, and later as the Project Development Manager for the Third Country Cooperation for North and West Africa at the British Embassy in Egypt. The gentleman who is about to share with us on the uptake and challenges of the AfCFTA has presided over the Egyptian delegations to various technical and high-level meetings across the world, and specifically in COMESA, and has contributed a lot to the development of the AfCFTA, not just for Egypt, but for Africa at large. So I take this opportunity to say thank you, Dr. Mohamed Ali, and welcome as you share with us on the uptake and challenges of the AfCFTA. Jacob is the guest with us.
Just hold on, Larry. He was online and we seem to have just lost him. Let me just make sure he's back online. Please be with us, guests.
Here comes the presentation.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm not sure if I'm audible or not. I have a problem with my device, my other device. I'm using alternative device. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, so my sincere apology about the technical difficulty I was facing, and thank you, Larry. Again, Larry did the introduction. My name is Mohamed Ali. I'm the Director for Trading Goods and Competition within the AfCFTA. And I'm pleased to be here in this webinar, this very important webinar, to take you through the AfCFTA status quo and challenges, and to answer the questions and be part of this very important discussion. So for that purpose, I have prepared quick presentation about where we stand in the different areas of negotiation, different areas of implementation for the AfCFTA as we stand now, and report on the progress, and in the same time take you through some challenges the AfCFTA is facing toward the implementation. Okay, so the outline of my presentation will go through the status of signature and ratification, the status of schedule of tariff concession, rules of origin, non-tariff measures, status of trading service negotiation and dispute settlement, and phase 2 issues. In addition to the implementation tools and the instruments for the implementing the AfCFTA, and finally with the way forward and challenges. As you may know, currently as we stand now, there was no change on the number of signatures. We have 54 out of 55 African countries signed the AfCFTA agreement, which is a huge and significant commitment from the African continent toward this agreement, with state of Eritrea to be the only reminder country to sign the agreement. 43 African countries ratified the agreement and become a state party to the AfCFTA. And that is the first concept that is important to introduce for those who are not new to know about the AfCFTA. Member states are the memberships for the African Union, while the membership for the AfCFTA agreement, we call it a state party once they ratify the agreement. So you will see the word state party across the agreement, and you see the word state party across our presentation and our engagement a lot. So that is the difference between being a member state for the African Union and a state party for the AfCFTA. As for the schedule of tariff concession concern, the level of ambition of tariff liberalization under the AfCFTA is 97%. Over a specific period of time that is different between developing countries and least developed countries, while 3% is considered to be exclusion list. 46 African countries submitted their initial offers to the AfCFTA Secretariat. Out of them, 29 initial tariff offer has been technically verified by the Secretariat, and the recent development by the Council of Ministers increased that number from 29 to 36 with the addition of the tariff offers and the tariff concessions from Algeria and from the tariff concessions from the AAC member states, which represents 70% of the submitted offers has been now technically verified, and we are in the process of continuing the technical verification. To put those offers into legal framework that is implementable and actionable, we issued the first ever ministerial directive under the AfCFTA. It was for market access that has been adopted by the Council of Ministers and endorsed by the heads of states in their last meeting in February. As for the rules of origin, it is one of the most sophisticated and most challenging areas in any trade agreement. And I'm pleased to say that we managed to reach 88.03% of the tariff lines agreed upon rules of origin. The remaining tariff lines falls under only two sectors, under automotive sector and under textile sector. So in another word, unless you are trading products that is related to the automotive sector or textile sector, we have rules of origin for that product you are trading covered under the AfCFTA. The automotive sector is in a very advanced stage of finalization by the Council of Ministers. We are trying to put together a comprehensive approach for automotive sector to make sure that it is not only rules of origin, but it is rules of origin combined with the industrial policy that will allow everyone in the continent to take part of. We know that automotive sector is one of the most important sectors in all the countries. It attracts a lot of tariff revenues. So when we invite the member states to give market access in the automotive sector, we need to make sure that everyone has chance to benefit from that liberalization. Same thing for textile. Textile has been known for a long time that it is the start of any industrial revolution. It is a sector that is labor intensive, and we have a different interest from different countries that is in a different level of development. So we have the more advanced developed countries in Africa. They are interested in somehow more strict rules to preserve their ongoing, already existing investments and already existing capacities. While the new players who want to enter the market or want to expand in the market, they want some flexibility. So that is a very interesting discussion. It is normal discussion, and that's why we are yet to have rules of origin in textile, but we are also treating the textile sector as one of the most important sectors for us to focus on. Additional regulations that is required under the trading goods framework is the treatment of special economic zones and infant industries. And the importance of these regulations, because special economic zones is proven to be one of those areas, if you address the right policy to it, and if you address maybe some level of flexibility and the right industrial policy to it, it can attract investment, that can attract targeted investment for targeted sectors that is different from country to country, which will allow the country to industrialize. So we have already a draft regulation for special economic zones, and the Council of Ministers will address that matter in their next meeting. Infant industry is very important regulation as well that is required by the agreement. It is simply a fail-safe mechanism for those countries who want to start new industry, and they want to make sure that they have the required protection from the more advanced countries in the region if they open their market. So that is another regulation that we are anticipating. So as I said, the outstanding rules are for motor vehicles and motor sector and the textile, and those are the numbers and the percentages of those tariff lines. It's 568 tariff line for textile and 77 tariff line for the automotive. For the non-tariff measures, as you know, the non-tariff measures under the AfCFTA that include the non-tariff barriers and include the SPS measures and include the TPT measures. For non-tariff barriers, it is considered under Annex 5 of the agreement with the view of progressively eliminate non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers work program has been designed and it is in place, and the online mechanism for reporting and monitoring the elimination of non-tariff barriers platform has been launched, as we will see later. For technical barriers for trade, and this is the area where we can address the matter of standards that has been, the work program for that area has been started, and the action plan for the standards has been finalized, and it is taking place with the cooperation of ARSO, the African Organization for Standards, and we are rolling that out. That will include, and hopefully we are in discussion on a Made in AfCFTA certification and mark, and that is underway. We need to have discussion around that, but we want to make sure that the products that is being traded in our country under the AfCFTA are being recognized by the consumers by a certification mark or by trademark. For SPS, it is one of the most important sectors as well. African advantage is the agro-processing sectors that has been identified as one of the priority sectors where we can focus and where we can make difference. So to get the SPS measures harmonized, recognized, and shared among the economic operators, that is priority priority as well. It is challenging for collection of data and challenging for dissemination of the information. However, it is we need to do something about it, and we created a draft work plan that will be presented to the member state in the next months, that will put together a clear step toward maybe harmonizing those measures, SPS measures, and of course with the cooperation with the African Union Agriculture Commission. As far as trade and service concerned, 46 countries submitted their trade and service offer. The technical verification for the trade and service is crucial, and it is even more complicated than the one in trading goods. We have another ministerial directive that adopt 15 schedule of tariff concession for trade and service, and the ongoing negotiation and ongoing discussion to finalize the other submissions from the member states are ongoing. The good thing about that, the difference is not huge. However, it is very heavily technically complicated, but I think we are looking toward maybe breakthrough in the upcoming few meetings that will increase the number from 15 to hopefully something around 35. 5 subcommittees for trade and service has been established to consider different methods under the trade and service, including the regulatory framework, and address the additional 7 sectors for trade and services. For dispute settlement mechanism, as the AfCFTA dispute settlement mechanism Article 2 of the protocol of the rules and procedure for dispute settlement, we created the dispute settlement mechanism that is being administered by the dispute settlement body, and that has been concluded and done, and now we are in the process of creating and appointing the appellate body, which will make sure that we have the rules-based system that we promised under the AfCFTA. For phase 2 issues, we had also not to forget that we have phase 2 issues that we had to focus on together with implementing what we have in phase 1 in the AfCFTA, that include protocols for investment, competition, and IPR. I can happily report that the investment and competition, they are in a well advanced stage in terms of draft language and draft protocols. IPR draft has been produced and shared, and I think by the end of this month or early September, we will have very focused sessions on IPR, competition, and investment. There are supporting tools, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, that include the launch of the AfCFTA website, the launch of e-tariff book that will allow the economic operators to know the market access opportunities for their products and where they can get the market access opportunities, which countries are ready to receive products from the AfCFTA and which other countries that yet to join the ministerial directive and submit their concessions. Trading documents has been finalized and shared, and you can have access to that by contacting the Secretariat or through the website, namely the Certificate of Origin, Origin Declaration, Supplier and Producer Declaration. The Rules of Origin Manual has been finalized, printed, and rolled out, and you can also ask for the Rules of Origin Manual from the AfCFTA website. A non-tariff barrier portal has been run and operational, and the link is on the screen, and I will request my colleagues to share this information with you. Implementation support for the payment system that has been done with the support of AfriEximbank, and it is a project that is being led by AfriEximbank and the AfCFTA Secretariat. The Pan-African Payment System In summary, it is a system that will allow the Africans to trade using their own currency, that will remove the barrier from the traders who want to import to maybe work and find and hard currencies and pay the fees around it, and will allow the banks, our central banks, to avoid spending over $5 billion per year in transactions. So as a way forward, we looking forward to commence the commercially meaningful trade under the AfCFTA. We are putting together what we call Initiative for Guided Trade that will be launched end of September or early October. The initial indicative date is 26th of September, but that depends on the availability of the ministers. So we are looking for something toward the end of September or early October. Another keystone for looking forward, state parties are required to officially gazette the provisional schedule of tariff concessions in accordance to their national law. The Secretariat also, moving forward, will continue the technical verification for the remaining provisions of schedule concessions. We work also on awareness raising among the private sector using the non-tariff barrier tool, and continue support the non-tariff barrier reports we receive from the economic operators. Capacity building and training of trainees with the REX and national focal points programs are being designed. Most of them thanks for the World Customs Organization and other partners who are helping us to design these programs, and it will be rolled out, I think, early 2023. Dedicated sessions to finalize the mentioned regulations, namely the special economic zones and the infant industries, are underway. Rules of origin, in our way, our effort to conclude the negotiation on automotive, we put together a comprehensive strategy, as I mentioned, for automotive that take us a very huge step toward finalizing the automotive. We are looking forward to do the same thing, comprehensive package for textile that will include rules of origin, a financial offer from one of our financial partners, and industrial approach that create value chain and make sure that there is synergy between the African countries that will allow us to have finally unified rule for textile in Africa. Phase 2 issues, I think in phase 2 issues, we are, as I mentioned, we'll continue the negotiation. We are continuing the negotiation in next month, in September 2022. We hope that we will have a significant maybe a result that we can share by that. But I think we are so optimistic about the protocol for investment, protocol for competition, and we will push for the protocol for IBR also by the end of this year. Now, challenges. And before I speak about challenges, when we started our journey here in the AfCFTA Secretariat, all of us, we know it is a challenging process. And I want to say the AfCFTA is not about the AfCFTA Secretariat. It is not about anyone. The AfCFTA is a dream for all African. So challenge is a challenge for everyone. So the first challenge we need to speak about the size of the membership and what it means to govern agreement like the AfCFTA. It is like driving in a high road, on a highway. If you are driving with 2 or 3 friends in a sedan, you can maneuver, you can go fast, you can go slow. But if you are driving with 55 member states, that is different in a different level of development. Each intervention should be addressed equally to all 55 member states. So that is one of the key challenges we have. The size of the membership is blessing, but it comes with its own challenges. Early structure phase of the Secretariat as well, we established, we started to build up the team in the Secretariat in March 2021, and we are gradually implementing the agreement or implementing phase 1, negotiating phase 2, and at the same time building gradually the structure of the AfCFTA. In some cases, the absence of national committees to complement what type of initiatives we are having on a continental level can be challenges. We are working with those countries who have national committees. In fact, most of the countries that is part of our guided trade initiative has been selected because they have a national committees for the AfCFTA, while we are working with the rest of the countries to create their own. Awareness about and capacity building on the AfCFTA development and opportunity. As I said, it is a collective responsibility. There is no single organization that can claim that they are efficiently doing awareness and capacity building about the AfCFTA in all African countries. It is a collective effort. It is a collective for a continental body, collective effort and responsibility for regional bodies, for non-government organizations. Negative impact on from COVID-19 and geopolitical problems that we are facing in the world, of course, negatively impact the implementation of the AfCFTA. Obviously, COVID-19 made it very difficult for us to move around, very difficult for us to engage and finalize some of the outstanding work, and the geopolitical problems and the COVID-19 economic negative impacts as well made some member states start to focus on the physical policies and the protection of their market and their products over the essence of the AfCFTA, which is the free and open market. There is some specific and technical challenges. Maybe the current market access structure is a little bit complicated for the economic operators. And in my humble view, I think the discussion around that should start from the economic operators, from the non-government organization themselves, and should be a discussion around that can advise maybe what will happen in the future. We need to think is 13-year or 10-year is what we are looking for toward for our continental integration, and the current realities in the world. Does it give us the flexibility to wait 13 years before we have open market or not? Multiple stakeholder in trading service and technical negotiations as well made it very difficult for trading service to maybe to move in the same base as trading goods. But again, it is a challenge that we know and we are trying to address to the best of what we can. Transparency and notification challenges by the member states for SPS and TPT. It is very challenging to get what each country implement in terms of standards and requirement, SPS requirement. That effort has been done by WTO, by many organizations on international level and regional level, and it is still, until now, it is challenging to collect all the data that is required. We are working with those organizations who are building on the progress of the REX to collect a continental database for those measures. Harmonized standards and regulation across the continent is a long-term process. Of course, if you are speaking about harmonizing the car in South Africa with the car industry in other country, you will have a challenge because most of those standards has been set to accommodate and respond to the national needs, and that will be a challenge to make sure you harmonize. The way we are looking at it, the best way is to put together a database and see how we can and where is the areas of harmonization. And for that purpose, I want to thank ARSO as well, who has been doing a lot of work even before the AfCFTA come to life in the effort of harmonization. And now it is time for the AfCFTA to build on that, to have a legally binding harmonized standards. Concurrent jurisdiction for some phase 2 issues and even phase 1 issues that is also challenged. We all know that one of the reasons the AfCFTA in place, that there is a multiple membership for some countries. The RECs, Regional Economic Communities membership, they are overlapping them among themselves, and there is some challenges to be addressed as well between the AfCFTA and the regional bodies. So those are the challenges that has been identified. Of course, there is more, and we are not saying these challenges are a reason to hold us back, but it is better for us to understand them, to identify them, and start addressing them with possible ways of overcome. That would mark the end of my presentation, and I want to thank you. I'm not sure. I have my colleague Demita, who may wish to focus on some customs, more customs-oriented matters under the AfCFTA. I don't know if she managed to join the meeting or not, but other than that, that would be my presentation. And I want to thank you, and I'm making myself available to answer any question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohamed Ali, and pass our appreciation to His Excellency Wamkele for giving you his blessings to join and to share with us. We take note of the excellence presentation and the progress made on the AfCFTA. It's heartwarming to know that nearly 90%, that is 46 countries, have submitted their offers related to the AfCFTA. 70% technical verifications, but more heartwarming is that 88% tariff lines have been agreed under the rules of origin negotiation. If anything, some of you may be aware that the EU and the WCO has a partnership on rules of origin in Africa, and they collaborate and cooperate with the AfCFTA. And recently they launched the program for Africa in Accra. Why I'm sharing this is to buttress what Mr. Ali has said, because in that particular launch program, two things came out: that there is need for capacity building, and there is need for harmonization or harmonized instruments on the rules of origin. And so to know that there is a plausible support and there are combined efforts in this area, it's really good. And then SADC has also organized an electronic certificate of origin launch workshop that will be held in the warm heart of Africa, Malawi, I think 6th and 7th of September. So we'll be looking forward to seeing how this goes and the deliberations and the outcomes of this workshop. And Mr. Ali, it's also heartwarming to note that there's the website, there's the electronic tariff book. A number of people are requesting for this presentation. It's to mute. Yeah, for these presentations, with the assistance of Jacob and team, we will share this with everyone attending these. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite the next and final speaker. We have an opportunity for question and answer immediately after this, and the ones related to customs will be responded to by Mr. Lee's colleague if he or she managed to join. So make sure you send your questions on the box, on the chat box, and we will get back to you on these. Many of you are aware of Trudi Hartzenberg, who is the Executive Director of the Trade Law Center, that is a Tralac. She is a researcher par excellence with a lot of knowledge and information on international trade, on policies related to competition, on industrial development in Africa, on the Africa integration agenda for Africa by Africa, spearheaded by none other than Trudi, one who we consider one of us in all sense. She has a very good and special interest to capacity building and has done a lot of capacity related documentation and papers related to policy. And so she's going to be sharing with us the perspectives of the private sector in relation to the AfCFTA. Trudi, welcome and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Larry, and good afternoon, colleagues. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and I would like to thank Mohamed for an excellent presentation. You've made my job very easy, but also very difficult, because you've covered so many of the important issues already. Colleagues, I have a presentation which I will share with you. Just make sure that it is on presentation mode. Here we go. Colleagues, I feel a bit like an imposter because technically I'm not in the private sector, but I would like to invite you to join me as we look at the AfCFTA and the developments that Mohamed has shared from a private sector perspective. I think it's very important to keep in mind, of course, that it is the private sector that will invest, produce and trade under the AfCFTA. And therefore, much of the success will depend on the decisions taken in response to the new incentives and the new opportunities that the AfCFTA creates. And so we have to ask very seriously, what are the expectations of the private sector when it comes to the AfCFTA? And here, very often, the answer will lie in the fine print of the legal texts, the different legal texts that combine to form the compact that we call the African Continental Free Trade Area. We know already, as Mohamed has indicated, it's a very comprehensive agreement covering trade in goods, services, investment, competition policy, intellectual property rights, not only e-commerce, but digital trade and women, youth and trade. But there may still be areas where the private sector may indicate that we still have some gaps. What are they? And one can think about some of these important challenges that we are facing in a world that has become increasingly complex since we started the AfCFTA journey some years ago. These complexities are now undeniable as they relate, for example, to the climate crisis. How will we make sure that we can use the AfCFTA to incentivize decisions that will support sustainable industrial development, sustainable trade, reduce our carbon footprint, and so look to the AfCFTA also as a vehicle for Africa's sustainable development? We know that the AfCFTA is a flagship project of the African Union, and therein lie a number of connections to existing flagship projects on agriculture, industrialization, infrastructure development, and so many more. How does the private sector benefit from those connections? These are questions that we have to interrogate and provide answers to. Very important contribution of the AfCFTA is to improve the business environment. We often talk about creating an enabling environment for business through trade agreements and support policies and regulations at national level, at regional level, and also continental level. How do we go about recognizing and implementing the various provisions in the AfCFTA that will do just that? To understand that, we also have to know what the key impediments are to efficient, effective, competitive business decisions for engaging in cross-border economic activities, taking up the investment, production, and trade opportunities of the AfCFTA. And Mohamed has certainly covered this. We know there's ample evidence, and you and I see a lot in the media that reminds us that things have not changed a great deal when it comes to elimination of non-tariff barriers. We know that there are many assessments which indicate that the impact of non-tariff barriers completely dwarfs the impact of trade barriers. And therefore, improvements in terms of our trade environment by eliminating the non-tariff barriers under the umbrella of the AfCFTA, which essentially, colleagues, amounts to governance improvements, can go a long way to create a more competitive, enabling and supportive business environment, not only for trade amongst ourselves, but extremely important. The AfCFTA is not an inward-looking trade agreement. It can also be a platform, a framework for changing the way we trade with our global partners. And I think this is an extremely important multiplier effect for the private sector. While we focus on improving intra-Africa trade, if we change through the incentives of the AfCFTA, our production structures, we attract investment, cross-border investment, but also foreign direct investment from global sources to diversify and expand our productive capacity. We can change the way we trade and what we trade with our global trade partners. And I think this is a particularly important consideration for the private sector. International trade agreements can provide legal certainty and predictability for business decisions, whether it be about sourcing skills that are not available in our domestic market, or sourcing inputs, or finding access to new market opportunities. And this is important for the private sector. Business deals on a daily basis with risk. The risk-return trade-offs are well known to every business person, but uncertainty can really cause major challenges. So by reducing uncertainty in the trade environment, having a continental framework for cross-border decisions goes a long way to reducing that uncertainty. Because keep in mind, for example, the kind of investment we want to attract cross-border is long-term commitments. It's not the fly-by-night investment that really is going to make a difference to the development outcomes that we expect of the AfCFTA. We want long-term commitments that will be contributing to development through job creation, expanding knowledge, innovation, contributing to research and development. So this becomes an important contribution of the AfCFTA. This will manifest in many different ways, and one of them, and Mohamed has also mentioned this, will come via the notifications that the state parties will make to the Secretariat when they adopt new regulations, for example, so that these are in the public domain. They're not a state secret. It shouldn't be difficult to find out what the rules and regulations are. So transparency, access to information becomes extremely important as part of the AfCFTA as a construct for reducing uncertainty, improving predictability, transparency, improving good trade governance. Colleagues, very important. In recent times, of course, we've seen that the AfCFTA is now designated a framework for Africa's industrialization. And I would really like to invite you to think about some of the issues of this industrialization ambition with me this afternoon. This is in many ways, as we might say, a no-brainer. There's a clear rationale for putting industrialization front and center with the AfCFTA. This is just a reminder, as Mohamed has indicated, we've got a comprehensive legal construct here. Our new issues that have been added since we started the negotiations are important, but the agreement, colleagues, provides that the member states can add more issues. The state parties, now that many of them have ratified the agreement, can add additional legal instruments to this compact as this fast developing complex trade, investment and industrialization world unfolds. Mohamed has also reminded us that we already have a long track record of regional integration and trade integration on the continent. The regional economic communities have been the focal points of that track record. There's a great deal of knowledge and experience. There's intellectual capital associated with what they have achieved. We're not obliterating them, we're building on them. That makes sense from a business perspective, that we know the number of countries that have already ratified the agreement. So when it comes to implementation of the AfCFTA agreement, from a business perspective, from a private perspective, what needs to be done? Clearly, the state parties, they have negotiated the trade agreement and they undertake obligations. So they have a responsibility for much of the implementation agenda. It takes place at national level. Now here, UNECA, the AfCFTA Secretariat, African Union Commission, and many development partners have supported the development of the national implementation plans. We haven't got for every state party yet. There is still work to be done, but this is a good start. But having a document on a shelf, colleagues, while very useful, very necessary, is not sufficient. That has to be actioned. We've got to start the implementation process in a concerted manner. So the question is, who or which institutions will implement the AfCFTA? And the answer to that is a long list. This means that we need a focal point, so our national committees become extremely important in a coordination function. It has to be well coordinated. Many agencies, government-related bodies are involved in the implementation process. The private sector, colleagues, must also be involved in this process, because at the end of the day, how the AfCFTA is implemented, we will encounter the acid test of whether that is successful or not when the goods come to a border post. So the private sector has to be involved in that implementation process. This involves a number of well-known processes, updating the tariff book. In most countries, this will have to be gazetted. Rules of origin have to be adopted. New instruments have been developed already. A great deal of work has been done under the auspices of the AfCFTA, with the Secretariat leading the process. But it also means that the private sector must know what these rules are. They must know where to apply, what necessary documentation they will have to be collecting as they produce their particular products. For example, standards, sanitary, phytosanitary standards, technical barriers to trade. The technical regulations, colleagues, are becoming increasingly important as we become more and more concerned, for example, about environmental impacts, climate impacts, and so on. Packaging and labeling requirements that many countries are developing as part of their domestic regulations will become important market access issues. How will the private sector get to know about those? The trade facilitation agenda is a very comprehensive agenda. It requires coordination among all the agencies that we encounter at a border post. There are many of them, 10, 11, 12 or more in many cases. How do they coordinate? Does the right hand know what the left hand is doing? Are the institutions effectively coordinating to truly facilitate trade? Does the customs officer who's checking the rules of origin certificate have a good understanding of the overall enterprise that is the African Continental Free Trade Area and of her role in facilitating AfCFTA trade? This requires a lot of capacity building, not only for those agencies and for the customs and other officers, but also for the private sector. So a great deal of work needs to be done there. I'm going to skip through and come back to the role of information. And I think this, colleagues, a legal instrument is a very complex document. It's not easy reading. And for the private sector, therefore, initiatives such as the Handbook on Rules of Origin, the e-Tariff Guide, are really important instruments. They have to be continually updated and revised to make sure that they have the latest, the most accurate information, and that they are accessible. They shouldn't be accessible only to academics or to legal scholars who understand the complexities of international trade governance. They should be easily accessible to every trader across the continent. Also involved in the implementation plans have to be the domestic trade supporting institutions, our trade and investment agencies, and many, many others who are involved in supporting business, providing market intelligence, assisting with information to market opportunities, quality assurance, infrastructure, testing facilities. How do I register a trademark in Malawi? Where do I go? Is there a services trademark available for the service that I am providing, or the product process, the process of production that I have developed? These are very practical questions. We must have answers and we must support our businesses. This means that we have to pay particular attention to the small, medium and micro enterprises, because large businesses, colleagues, can simply appoint a consultant to find the relevant information. SMMEs cannot do that, and therefore a complex trade agreement such as this inherently has an asymmetry which disadvantages the smaller enterprises that do not have the deep pockets in order to find the requisite information or the appropriate institution to approach. This is where our focus should be, because this is also where we will make sure that there is a development outcome from the AfCFTA. Women and youth enterprises, what will be in the protocol on women and youth in trade? Are we going to be able to address the systemic challenges that women and youth and other marginalized groups face when it comes to trade, access to information, access to finance, access to trade finance, and a range of other very practical impediments that they encounter on a daily basis? This is, of course, we acknowledge that there are many complementary initiatives, and key players have stepped forward to contribute to support the success of the AfCFTA. AfCFTA, the African Development Bank, and many, many other partners. And I think this is extremely important to acknowledge the contributions. The question from the private sector perspective is, what else needs to be done? How do I get access to the new trade finance instruments that AfCFTA is developing? How does PAPS work? Do I need a bank account with a commercial bank in order to use PAPS? These are practical questions. They are very, very important questions. And unfortunately, at this stage, we do not have enough information about these initiatives available in an accessible format to small-scale traders who do not have the deep pockets to appoint a consultant to find the answers. I've emphasized the importance of supporting SMEs, women and youth businesses. Keeping that in mind, let's now focus, colleagues, on the very important areas which lead us to the AfCFTA as a framework for industrialization, because this brings together trade, investment, technology transfer, skills development, innovation, research and development, a whole range of extremely important business areas. How do we attract FDI into strategic sectors that can contribute to the development of our regional and continental value chains that have been prioritized already? What do we need to do in the protocol on investment? It is still under construction, we understand. What needs to be there so we can leverage that cross-border investment, keeping in mind it's not just the big investment flows that matter. It is the small-scale entrepreneur, the young woman involved in digital economy developments, for example, app developments, who's saved up some money, can buy a number of mobile phones or a laptop and moves across to a country where she understands there's a cluster of similar-minded entrepreneurs. That is also investment. That's transfer of skills, that's learning. We have to support those cross-border economic activities as well. So the digital economy, which is now the economy, is no longer a separate sliver of the economy, of the economic landscape. The economy is digital. We have to understand how that works and what the opportunities are. But fundamental challenges still remain. And this is also where we need to support the private sector, and where the private sector is going to be asking tough questions. How can the AfCFTA support addressing the challenges of food insecurity in Africa? What can we do about agricultural innovation? We hear about a lot of small-scale innovations which never make it to market, that never reach scale. Why not? What are the impediments? Is it access to finance? Is it access to technological support of some kind? Let's help. This is so important. And then we come back to intellectual property right protection. We've got to look after what we innovate and develop, protect through intellectual property rights. Now, full scale, how does industrialization fit into the AfCFTA? We've heard already that there are a number of value chain developments underway, and colleagues, this is really important because here we're now focusing on a particularly important interface between market or trade liberalization and industrial development. So this is where trade policy meets industrial policy. Digital development policies become really important. Access to inputs, to skills, to services. Digital transformation has to be on the agenda for industrialization, because without that, we're going to be creating industries for the last century, not for the future. In fact, it's true to say that industrialization is about agriculture. Agriculture is as much an industry as clothing and textiles is. It's about services, and it's about the digital economy developments as well. So a rethink about what we see as industrial development is really important. We already have a number of priority value chains that have been identified. How is the private sector involved in developing the strategies, the support programs for those value chains? Are we thinking differently about the future of those sectors, of those value chains? And these are fundamental questions. We have to meet the new frontiers for industrial development. Colleagues, it's an absolute tragedy that the African continent is not energy secure. We're in a phase where the users of energy of the past are now producers of energy. Technology has enabled that those of us who used to use energy and rely on a state-owned enterprise to supply energy to us can be the generators of energy. Are we leveraging these new opportunities and developments effectively? Or are we still seeing, very unfortunately, that we are placing regulatory hurdles at every corner to prevent that happening without new approaches to industrial development, new approaches to finding and assuring energy security? Industrialization remains on the wish list. So this, I think, is extremely important to keep in mind. Colleagues, industrialization in the AfCFTA presents an opportunity to bring together in a comprehensive manner a new vision for a continental African economic development. And the focus is on development because we can support development in new, innovative ways through innovative approaches to industrialization. These are some of the developments that we really are seeing right now across even all of our least developed countries. Or are we still standing as this little robot is watching the world go by with new developments and we're holding on to what we had in the past? Colleagues, we've got to be brave and bold when it comes to industrialization. This is where agriculture meets industry, meets services, meet the digital economy and digital trade. That interface is what industrialization in the 21st century is about. But these are the kind of reality checks that we still have. This is about digital policy changes and internet access. And what you do see, the light blue colors on the African map indicate that we're lagging behind. Again, we have to change. We have to change this. Access to connectivity, reliable access to connectivity is a foundational requirement for an inclusive AfCFTA, for inclusive industrialization. What kind of value chains are we envisaging? What will our new factories look like? Thinking about industrial policy underpinning the AfCFTA, colleagues, this is a very dated sketch from Forbes some years ago when the fourth industrial revolution was news. Where is our policy thinking on this line from first, second, third, and fourth industrial development processes? We're now in the fifth industrial revolution, where we're starting to see a recognition of the importance, as it should always have been, on human intelligence, empathy, creativity, cooperation, collaboration for mutually beneficial development outcomes, using technology, machines, learning, all that technology and the digital developments offer to improve the lives of every citizen on the continent. It also means putting women and girls at the forefront of our industrial development endeavors. Colleagues, I'm going to stop here. This is an important challenge for all of us. The fifth industrial revolution encompasses notions of harmonious human-machine collaboration, with emphasis on the well-being of all. What is our vision of the AfCFTA? What does the private sector expect? What will be a truly development-oriented AfCFTA? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trudi, and thank you, Larry, and thank you for Mohamed. I was coming in late, but thank you very much. I enjoyed the sessions thoroughly. So, Trudi, while you were speaking, I draw up an industrial house. So before I go to Jakob, that will take us through the polling, I'm going to show you my industrial house. So first of all, the ground is the legal framework, which you described to us. The foundation is probably the co-creation, collaboration, and well-coordinated. The door to the house I made as the logistics network, because if we don't have a logistics network, we don't move forward. The bricks is the tools that you described so well for us. Then the windows I put down as capacity building, and the window is currently closed unless we put the handle in, and the handle probably will be digital trade. I hope that's the handle. Then the roof I put on top is the coordinated border management, because that's the pillar one, which is the customs to customs. The pillar 2 is the AEO, and pillar 3 is the other government agencies. And I hope Demita will, maybe there's some questions in the chat that I think she will help us with, because there we can do this standardization. Then I went further to put the sun as the women and youth, because I think that if I articulate that correctly, the sun is the human, the women and the youth. The rain is the trade that we want desperately under the AfCFTA, and the investment. And then I put 2 last ones. The key to the door is properly the practical implementation. And then hopefully, I hope it never comes to us, but the storms is the size of the non-tariff barriers. So I hope I summarize it, because I listened intensely in your presentations and Mohamed's one. So I hope I summarize it correctly, but thank you very much. And I'm going to hand over to Jakob, because as you know, colleagues, he was running 4 polling indications and he wants to share the results with us, and then we're going to go over to the questions. So Jakob, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juanita. I think you have such a skill and ability to capture complex ideas in such a profound manner. So it's for me very difficult to speak after you, but we really appreciate it, that concept. So colleagues, before we go to Q&A, I see we still have about 20 minutes left. I do not want to take too much of the time. So I do encourage, we already received a number of questions and we will get to them. But if you do have a question and you want to speak, raise your hand and we will get to you. But if not, you can just, you can put it in the chat function or the Q&A. So colleagues, allow me the results of the poll questions. We ran a couple of poll questions. We had some good feedback. So firstly, we asked, where do you obtain information on the AfCFTA? And 40% of the colleagues said on the internet, but incidentally, 24% said there is not sufficient information on the AfCFTA. And also then 16% said the AfCFTA Secretariat or other regional economic communities. So I want to pose already a question perhaps to our colleagues from the Secretariat, to Mohamed and Madame Demita, is how can we change that? How can we get information from the AfCFTA out there to the commercial partners playing a role in the supply chain? Then secondly, we asked, or we rather started with a statement. Historically, Africa does not trade amongst itself. Only about 14% of trade in Africa occurs between African countries. How much will this change under the AfCFTA? Unfortunately, there are some cynics amongst us. 16% said no change. But some people reckon that we will see significant change between 20 and 40% of trade, even as much as 50%, which will envisage the dream of the AfCFTA. Then thirdly, and I think especially Trudi mentioned the fact that small and medium-sized enterprises, and then of course also informal traders, and especially women and children, are key to grow in Africa and account for about 80% of the region's business. Will the AfCFTA benefit SMMEs, or do we expect only multinationals to gain benefit? And a lot of the colleagues believe that SMMEs will benefit significantly. And once again, some cynics amongst us, I won't stand still there. And then fourthly, we said that 7 countries as listed there are already trading under AfCFTA, which is fabulous news for us. When do you expect your members or companies, countries to start trading under the AfCFTA? And most expect in the next couple of years, and we hope to fast track that. Then the last question was really to envisage a dream, and that is, what is the main benefit under the AfCFTA? And most of the colleagues said expanded market opportunities for African countries, but then also regional integration and accelerated move to a single African market. I am going to stop sharing here and I'm going to start with the question. So the first question I want to pose, and I want to pose it to the AfCFTA Secretariat. So perhaps Mohamed, and Damita can answer this question. And the question is, what will become of the regional trading blocks once the AfCFTA is fully implemented? Do we continue to trade within these blocks, or will there be more favorable preferential rates under the AfCFTA? So I hand over to our colleagues from the Secretariat. Mohamed, Damita, over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I don't know if Damita want to answer that question, but allow me before trying to answer this question, I want to say something. From the results we have been seeing that there is obvious, and I think in my presentation I touched on that, and Trudi as well. Thank you so much for being so much in alignment on our concern as well from the AfCFTA Secretariat about the sharing of the information and how frequent the sharing of information and which form. So, for example, I want to speak about the most recent development we have, the e-tariff book or the website or the rules of origin manual. Those are developments that happened, I think, July 2022, last month. There is no expectation that this information will be with everyone, everyone know about them in August, while we are speaking in August, but they are there, and we are using the opportunities we have to share this information. This has been shared with the officials, has been shared with the ministers, has been shared with the government, has been shared with the regional economic communities. And that's what I mean by the AfCFTA being a shared responsibility by everyone, by non-government organizations, by regional bodies, by continental bodies, by national governments. So we are trying to do some work on that. And in return, maybe, for example, the questions and the poll results you showed right now will be tremendous help for us if we can get the results and the questions being communicated to us, get the results of this webinar communicated to us, and that is sort of feedback. So back to the question about what is the role of the RICS. I think it will be not wise to assume that at any point of time we should lose the progress of the regional economic communities. That is not what envisaged in the AfCFTA. The way I'm looking at it, the regional economic communities, as per the agreement, are our building blocks. What we mean by our building blocks, we are building on the achievements they have done. We are building on the tools they have. We are building on the networks they have to have a unified platform for Africa. For example, if you have COMESA member states, let's use Egypt as it is my country, and Kenya, for example. They are part of COMESA. Under the AfCFTA, Egypt and Kenya can trade in the same preferential level as in COMESA. So we are building on that. That does not mean they can trade under COMESA. Of course, they can continue, and they will continue to trade under COMESA. But let's say the AfCFTA provide new additional value, which is the dispute settlement mechanism, which hopefully will be effective, and any other instrument, for example, financial instrument, financial initiative under the AfCFTA, they can use that. But ultimately, once the AfCFTA reach to the same level of these regional economic communities in terms of regional integration, now whether these RECs will be integrated in one united system with the AfCFTA or not, but we will reach there only by building on what they are doing. So the short answer is I don't think that the AfCFTA here to replace or to any rec or to say that the effort and very positive rules they are playing will not continue. No, it will continue. However, the AfCFTA as a continental program and as a continental body can provide what I can call one-stop shop for economic operators. You, at some point of time, once it is we are in the same level of integration with all the RECs, it is up to the investor. It is up to the economic operators. Do I need to engage in with the different multiple overlapping membership, or the AfCFTA has what I need in terms of facilities? And that is the idea and the vision of Agenda 2063, moving forward by the regional economic community to continental project that will not be possible without the support from the regional economic communities. Regional economic communities, they are our partners. They are participating in all our meetings, in all our discussion. We are counting on them on the development. And let's not forget that it is the same members. We are sharing the same membership. We're sharing the same vision, economic integration, and I don't see any reason where we need to stop and start thinking what would be the relation between the RECs and the AfCFTA Secretariat. I don't think, or the AfCFTA rather, not the AfCFTA Secretariat. I don't think that is the most pressing question right now. Maybe in the future, when our heads of state take decision to move forward in the integration toward the common market stage or the custom union stage, I think that question will be more important to answer. But as it stands now, free trade agreement, I think there is a lot of synergies, a lot of opportunities to work with the RECs more than worrying about what would be the relation with the RECs and the AfCFTA. I hope I answered this question. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mohamed. I think you gave us more than enough, and I think the key takeaway for us is really it will be the building blocks, of course. I see also our colleague Demita has got her hand up, so perhaps I hand it over to her for to perhaps add to what Mohamed has just said. Over to you, Demita. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm so sorry I can't on my video. I really look awful. I've been indisposed for a while. I'm just getting back to my feet, so I will speak without the video. And I hope my voice is manageable. Just to just add a little specific in terms of information sharing, just wanted to use the opportunity to let you know that regarding the AfCFTA tariff book, we do have a user manual that is there now. So it's also a way of actually disseminating information. So if you go to the tariff book, you will find the user manual. And the user manual is just in English now, but we are getting it translated in all the AU languages. Just needed to add that specific, and to also add to, in terms of sharing information, that beyond the website to the directorates all do have a dedicated emails that you can send queries to, and they will get the answers that are required. So I needed to just add those specifics on. That's what I wanted to say regarding information. Regarding the regional economic communities, my colleague Mohamed has said it all. But I was just musing because I said to myself, the RECs, some of the RECs are doing 100% of trade. The AfCFTA right now is just at 97, and even that 97 won't be till 13 years time. And so you would always have goods that are traded at the regional economic preference rates that you can trade under the AfCFTA until something happens to the exclusion list, for instance. So just to add that on, that's a complementary to what the director has said. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much, Juanita. I think that really does help us also, and just shows the need for collaboration. I want to go to a next question here, and I think some comments have already been said about on both sides, both from Mohamed and Trudi, in terms of currency and just fast tracking trade. And the question reads, are there any plans of establishing a common electronic currency that could be used to trade across the continent that might be faster than changing every country member's currency to one single currency? So perhaps I can go once again to Mohamed for this question. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. For that question, the short answer, I think it is going back to Agenda 26.3 in Abuja agenda or Agenda 26.3, where we have different stages of integration. I think, once again, the unified currency and the discussion around that would be suitable for a different stage of integration. There is agreement that we cannot be there in the next year or the next day. You need to gradually move. So for the AfCFTA, the AfCFTA is the African Continental Free Trade Area. We don't have any plans, or we are not envisaging anything related to a common currency. However, the tools we are providing, for example, PAPS, it is maybe, in my view, will lead to the same effect. It is not unifying the currency, but will allow the traders to trade using their local currency. So that is a step toward the common market. And usually I say the AfCFTA is not the traditional free trade agreement where you just give market access and you have the tariff reduction. The AfCFTA is a very ambitious program, and I can say it has some instruments, some common market instrument. It is agreement that has investment dimension, IBR dimension, competition dimension, and now tools like PAPS. So it is very promising, but the short answer for that question, not under the AfCFTA, rather the common currency as we stand now.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. The next question I want to pose to Trudi, if I may, and I think it's very much a practical question, and it reads, our clearing and forwarding department frequently receives queries from clients. The most common query is, when can we start trading under AfCFTA and enjoy the benefits of preferential rates? Trudi, over to you.
Jacob, thank you. And I see Mohamed smiling. This question actually should go to him. The Secretariat is coordinating our negotiations. And of course, Mohamed has alluded to the initiative for facilitated and guided trade, which we expect to begin before end of September. There's a short list of countries at this stage, a list of products that will be traded. But the important thing is for us to continue all our efforts to complete the negotiations so that we have the complete free trade area in place. As Mohamed has indicated, we are in that last mile, so to speak. The number of lines, tariff lines where we don't have agreed rules of origin is relatively small if you compare with what we have been able to agree. But this is also where those sensitivities are. You're looking at clothing and textile lines, automotive products, where so many African countries have an interest because they've got some domestic industry already, some cases well developed, in other cases not. And in some cases, they have ambition to develop those industries further. And not surprisingly, this is where we see the manifestation of offensive and defensive interest in negotiations. We want to protect our domestic industry, to support and develop those activities which are so important for our development outcomes. And then we may be prepared to open to import competition. So it's not surprising that these negotiations are taking so long. So if we look at all the other instruments that we have concluded under the AfCFTA, it's a very, very long list. But the bottom line is, for a free trade area, the two basic requirements: tariff concessions and preferential rules of origin. Until we have those in the bag, we do not have a full AfCFTA. That's the answer, Jacob. It's a very important one, but this is also where the engagement between our negotiators, our policymakers, and the private sector is so important. We must get over this last mile so that we've got a full functional free trade area where we can trade all those tariff lines in the tariff book. So unfortunately, I can't give you a timeline, Mohamed. Maybe you are prepared to give us some indication of what the timeline looks like.
Yes, thank you so much, Trudi. And I was laughing because this hard question has been addressed to you, not me. So, but I think I have to say something about that. From day one, our main question we wanted to address, and as you rightfully said, yes, the agreement, we have so many things to do on standards, on SPS, on competition, on investment, but unless we address this question, when we can take the trade from point A to point B and benefit from the AfCFTA, basically you don't have trade agreement. Everything else is just complementing that. So that is why we were focusing all the time on market access agenda and rules of origin agenda. As you rightfully said, unless you have a market access offer and unless you have a rules of origin, you can trade. That's why we started with our journey with 76% agreed rules of origin when we started here, and we managed to close the deal in so many sectors, and now we are 88%. Automotive is a very advanced stage, and I think we will hear very good news about automotive soon, which will leave the textile. Comparing that with negotiations, for example, with the WTO that has been until now, not all the rules of origin has been agreed. That is understandable. On market access, the thing is, we have to get tariff concessions from all member states by the agreement. And we stuck with the issue of should we finalize the rules of origin first or have a market access second? And maybe some countries, they are not ready. Some countries need some technical assistance. Some countries are ready and submitted full commitments, and some of them, they submitted maybe a portion of commitment. That's why we come up with a creative way or tool to solve that, which is the ministerial directive. Ministerial directive, as it stands now, as I said, is 29 countries, which has been upgraded to 35 countries that are ready and submitted the schedule of tariff concessions. If you want to know your destination or your country you want to target and your product, what type of treatment you will have, all you need to do is to go to the website of the AfCFTA, go to the e-tariff book, and you put there your search your product, and you will see all the information. Now, specifically about the trade itself. So let me get two different points. It's clear. From our point of view as a secretariat, and this is our concern, which is making sure the legal framework is there. We do that we have the required tools and framework to start trading. So whether you are part of the guided trade or not, that the framework is there if your country submitted the schedule of tariff concession. So if you will ask me, if you are an operator from South Africa and you want to trade under the AfCFTA, I will simply say, because SACO member states, they didn't submit their schedule of tariff concession or in the process of technical verification yet, Unfortunately, you can't. But if you are from Ghana, then Ghana within ECOWAS group, they submitted this schedule of tariff concession, which now means you can trade. So effectively, I think immediately that can happen. However, we noticed that even though with the framework is there and with all the tools that we think that is required for trade is there, the trade actually maybe is not happening or happening not under the AfCFTA. I can still go to the market here in Accra and you can see products from African countries, but I'm sure these products are not entering under the AfCFTA regime. So what we have done is we identified 6 or 7 countries representing the different regions of Africa, representing the Northern Africa, representing the Western and Southern and Central and Eastern Africa. We asked those countries who showed interest, please create a ad hoc or a ad hoc body, governmental body that is supported and joined by private sector to engage on a guided trade. And that has been a very successful practice that will allow us to test the system, that allow us to prove the concept that is the AfCFTA is there. So that will happen in 26th of September or early October, as I mentioned, that we already identified. I can say that we identified ceramic tiles going from Ghana to Cameroon already. We have already identified electric panels going from Egypt to Ghana already. We already identified coffee and tea going from Rwanda to Ghana already. We already identified batteries going from Kenya to Ghana already. We already identified some potential trades in palm oil, in sugar, going from Mauritius to either Ghana or Cameroon. Those products, those trades have been identified. Of course, it is logistically impossible to make sure that all of them happen on the 26th of September. So on 26th of September or early October, we will announce the trades that has happened, and we will capture those who have Ghana involved in, and we will provide brief or report on those who are we are not able to capture on the spot in Accra. So after 26th of September or after the 1st of October, the proof of concept of the AfCFTA will be proven to work. We will prove that now we have the required framework for trade to happen. Now, again, I'm back to the same point I'm trying to make. It is a shared responsibility. It is if the framework is there, and to avoid having the AfCFTA just a nice text that is on the shelf, we need to take steps. We need to take actual steps. So let's engage our government as a private sector. I want to trade under the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA, we know there is a tariff book. We know that there is a rules of origin manual. Why I can't have a certificate of origin? I want a certificate of origin for the AfCFTA. If you have a non-tariff barrier, please use that system for non-tariff barrier to report. So we at the AfCFTA, we can know where is the challenge and can address it. So in conclusion, trade framework is there. It can happen today. It can happen tomorrow. There is nothing stopping anyone from doing that. Some member states are taking some time for gazetting. Some member states are taking some time for submission. That is understandable. We are not in the same stage of development, and we need to know also the challenges of COVID-19 and the socio-political problems. But we are working with those who are ready, and hopefully the more trades we are doing with those who are ready, that will convince others to join. Additionally, after the initiative in 26th of September and October, we will announce, or we will take to our heads of states who are meeting in November a plan or a concept, how to take this guided trade forward, how to expand it, how to make it a continued effort, because from what we noticed, unless you can have prediction of the volume of trade, logistics will not work, and transport and infrastructure projects will not commence by themselves because there is no clear data about the trade demands. So it is all connected. It is a progress. It is not one-day event. In 26th of September, it will be one-day event, but it will be start to something hopefully in the future. I hope that addressed some of the questions.
I think so, for sure, Mohamed. I think we can listen so long for a very long time to you. I think it's been so wonderful to engage with the AfCFTA Secretariat, and I think the private sector need to engage with the respective government entities more and more. Colleagues, as I've mentioned on the chat, we've unfortunately run out of time, so we are committed to answer all the questions. We received another handful of questions or so do look out for them on the website when we share the recording of the session. So we want to conclude, and I hand over to Juanita for some final thoughts and some thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I think let we give a round of applause to Larry, to Trudi, and to Mohamed. I think it was excellent. Thank you very much. Then also, we don't always acknowledge them, but I've got a team of youngsters behind me. So it's Jacob, it's Juliette, it's Faith from the WCO RPSG as well. So thank you very much for all the organizing, the reaching out to the colleagues. It's very much appreciated. So with that, from myself, all the best. Enjoy a very grateful, or what would I say, a blessed Thursday afternoon. All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.